think that's the core. It's not about volume. Everybody's going into the direction of hacking the limitation. Our job is to find a way to generate the same results that we generated our customers yesterday with 3,000 connection requests. It's just 400. Now the average reply rate for a cold email is around 1%. Raising too much money in too big of a valuation is like peeing your pants. In the beginning it feels nice and warm, but afterwards it gets cold and it's not that nice.
Today's guest is Vordi, founder and CEO of Samplead, the trigger-based LinkedIn-first outbound engine used by teams who care more about intent than volume. Dor personally ran 900 plus sales calls to shape the product, helping customers move from manual research to 60 targeted prospects a day while managing only the replies. Samplead recently crossed $2 million in ARR, which you can say is proof that quality over quantity can scale. Before Samplead, Dor bootstrapped a venture past $1 million in sales off purely outbound campaigns. Episode is a masterclass in signals, timing, and building GTM the hard way, or you could say the right way. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the AI Chopping Block podcast. Today I have Vordi with me. He's the co-founder of Samplead. Samplead is an AI sales agent that helps sales teams increase conversion, reignite dormant leads, and reach results they haven't seen before. They've raised over $750,000 and they're doing over $1 million in revenue. Today, Dor joins us here. Dor, maybe you can do a quick intro about what is it that you're building in your own words, and then we'll dive into the fact that before you build this product, you interviewed about 1,000 outbound teams. So would love to hear what you found through those interviews.
Okay, so first of all, it's really nice to be here. Second, I'm a founder of a company called Samplead, and we're building an outbound solution that is helping B2B teams to generate more top of the funnel and opportunities. There's a lot of solutions in that space, but there's one thing that makes us different. Samplead is a trigger-based outbound solution. That's the methodology, the approach. That's what makes us different from other players in that space. Trigger-based outbound basically means that we are looking for intent signals all across the web on the personal level, which means that it's not an intent signal on the account level. It's not that company was searching for this. It's the actual, this person was participating in this event, and that's the reason and the message that you're going to use in order to start a conversation with him. And when we find those signals, we turn them into conversations. If we don't find them, we rather wait and don't send anything. It's basically a quality oriented approach of doing outbound. The reason we spoke to around 1,000 teams before we even started writing a single line of code. It might be because we're not coming from we're coming from the trenches of doing outbound. We didn't came to build this startup from a technical position. And I think that Samplead, first and foremost, was built out of our own pain. We were doing outbound for ourselves for many, many years. And we felt that as time goes by, the effectiveness of the existing outbound methods are declining. The average conversion rate that we could have expected 4 years ago is different than the one that we got 2 years ago, and definitely very different than what we're getting in from today. So our focus all along the way was to not just automate outbound and automate what SDRs are doing, but actually to find a way to change the way that companies are doing outbound, mostly in terms of the approach. We're not trying to build another AI agent that is replacing the SDRs by automating whatever they were doing. We are trying to build a co-pilot that enhances real people, but the main focus is to shift the way that companies are looking at outbound and move it to something that is more of a quality-oriented approach, basically.
Got it. Sounds good. So I've been doing outbound since 2008. It was working great back then. We would get 60 to 80% response rates. I think, back when people had BlackBerries, people got glued to their email and their phones. And then slowly that number kept getting lower and lower and lower. Right now, we're lucky to see, I think 2 to 6% response rate, sounds pretty good. 20% is kind of like an outlier. Where is the industry heading? Are we going to see lower and lower open rates? Or is there a solution to that? And Like, is outbound the answer, or like is outbound, by itself something that's gonna stick around? What do you think?
First of all, if the question if is outbound is dead, I personally think that outbound is not dead, and that companies would always do outbound because they don't have other choice. To create an inbound motion is something that is much more. It requires much more like budget, finance to create like a brand and do ads and to build this inbound motion, which is something that early stage companies don't have the budget ever. And every time that I'm trying to do something new, trying to enter a new market, the way to do it from the dawn of history is to go and start knocking on doors, and that's what outbound is. I think that you're completely right that if it was 60-80% reply rate a few years ago, now the average reply rate for a cold email is around 1%. So the results keep declining. And I think that what we will see in the near future, and we're already experiencing this, is that the old way of doing outbound, that's something that might vanish, or definitely in like the best performing teams, the approach will change. The way that companies approach outbound will be different. And the reason that you got 60-80% reply rates a few years ago and you're not getting this thing today is just think about it. So like 10 years ago or maybe 15 years ago, we sent someone an email that started with, "Hey, David, I saw that you're working for this company." And you might have thought to yourself, "Hey, like this guy actually sat down and he wrote an email for me. He used my name and he used my company's name, so it's probably directed to me." And as time went by, spam got increased. If you got 10 emails a day, now you get 1,000 emails a day. All those emails looks exactly the same thing, and everybody understands that there's automations and placeholders, and the fact that somebody used my personal name doesn't mean that he spent a second about thinking about me and if this thing actually fits. Also, spam, that the fact that we used outbound exactly in the same way that is built on volume, that created increasing levels of noise that only made this task harder to actually get someone's attention. And as time goes by, we wear out those like channels. We started by doing this thing manually, then we started automating, and now it just doesn't work anymore. So it's time for a new approach. It's time to change the way that we're doing things. Outbound didn't really change at all in the last 15 years. If you're looking at all the tools companies, the way that companies are approaching outbound, it's mostly built on volumes for the past kind of a long time. I think that it's not gonna disappear, but it's definitely going to change. I would say one more thing. It's like the same way that outbound used to be knocking on doors and sending letters, and then it moved to email, and it shifted. It moved. Had a lot of salespeople that were going from door to door trying to sell the product, and everything today is digitalized, and you're not meeting anyone. You're going maybe on conferences, but that's the way. That's the natural way of like those things to move.
Yeah, and then you're doing trigger-based outbound approach. Are you also doing the thing where you can set up 100 inboxes on your platform and rotating the inboxes for customers so they can kind of like send mass volumes, or that's not part of the platform?
I think that's the key of what we're trying to avoid and not do. Okay. For us, the approach says basically 10% out of 20 and 1% out of 200. It's exactly the same number. So if you get 10 replies out of 20 people you reached out to, or like 1% out of 200 people you reached out to, you're going to get the same amount of replies. The main difference is that you haven't spammed 180 people on the way, and you didn't damage your brand, and you didn't do bad first impression of reaching out to the irrelevant person on the wrong time with the wrong message. So what we're trying to do is not to continuously make it easier to blast high volume campaigns of outbound, but our focus is to find those 20 that are the optimal 20 you should reach out to today. Creating like avatars and warm-ups and inboxes, all of those mechanisms that we created over time to avoid spam filtering and the fact that reply rates are declining, this is something that we're staying away from. Our focus is to find real intent. That's to do cross-platform identity resolution, understanding that somebody that is looking for this thing on Reddit is the same person that I'm trying to sell to, and it's a good reason and timing for me to reach out to them.
So you must see a lot of like outbound campaigns. I mean, I don't know if you peek into like your customers' campaigns, but I'm sure they ask you. Just curious, like what are some of the triggers like that seem to work, like with your software or with your customers' outbound campaigns? Are there any specific ones, maybe like two or three that come to your mind?
Sure, I think we're doing multiple things. We find people that are talking on podcasts and pages they start following on X,
Okay.
and things that are coming from GitHub and news reports and physical conferences.
Hmm.
But the bottom line, I think that's something that we're seeing across the board
Hmm.
is that the trigger that we're using, if I'm using a trigger and I'm
Hmm.
trying to create a conversation with you,
Hmm.
smaller the group that you're sharing that piece of information with,
Hmm.
the higher the chances that you're going to reply. And I'll explain.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So if I'll see that you joined a community on LinkedIn
Hmm.
and there's 5,000 members in
Hmm.
that community,
Hmm.
so it's you and 4,999 other people.
Hmm.
It might move the needle for you, it might not.
Hmm.
If I find a podcast that you participated in yesterday and it was you and the host,
Hmm.
that's me doing homework,
Hmm.
finding you specifically, and that message that I sent you around the podcast
Hmm.
couldn't be sent to anyone else in the world because you were the only one. You and the host were the only ones in that podcast. So
Hmm.
if I'm going to like the philosophy behind what we're doing is that if I'm shifting away from spraying and praying, from automations, from volumes,
Hmm.
something that I'm trying to convince the prospect with my first message is that, hey, I did my homework.
Hmm.
There's a real reason for me to reach out.
Hmm.
You're not a part of an automated campaign,
Hmm.
and I spent some time and I thought about it before I just sent you a message.
Hmm.
And obviously, it doesn't work 100% of the times, but we definitely see that the dominance of different triggers
Hmm.
is usually based on the rarity, like how small is the group that is related to that specific intent signal or that specific engagement.
Got it. And so, I mean, just curious, most customers always want more results. And do you get like requests that ask, that where your customers ask you to have these like rotating inboxes where they can set up like 1,000 of them and get, best of both worlds, like get the triggers plus like, a million inboxes that they can scale into often comes to your table?
It is a request that often comes to my table, and I usually say, like, listen, that's not what we're doing because it's not an endless, it's not an endless fountain of triggers. We don't force it. If we don't find something, if we found 20 people today and 15 people tomorrow, it's completely fine because we want to reach out to the actual people that have better chances of opening your message and replying today. The second part of what we're doing with Samplead is and that's definitely another reason why Outbound has become so challenging. That's something that we realized after talking with around 1,000 teams that are doing Outbound, is that it's like very, very hard for the SDR to get a reply. And it's not because they're bad people, it's just because an SDR is a junior sales rep in most cases, and nobody wants to talk to them because they understand exactly what's the hidden interest behind it. It's someone that is reaching out to me because he wants to book a call for me that will create an opportunity for a different sales guy that will actually, he might qualify me, he might call me on the phone, but at the end of the day, it's the beginning of the hierarchy in terms of like the food chain. And it's really, really different. And we've experimented this thing with thousands of messages. I give my junior sales rep to reach out to potential customers, or we use my LinkedIn profile to do that. The difference in results is crazy. I'm the founder of the company, which means that I have the biggest chances of opening strategic opportunities on behalf of the company. Now, the thing is that I don't have the time to do it, so I want to let someone else from my team to manage my LinkedIn profile. That's another thing that Samplead is doing. It's a secure, private, and a very easy way to support that motion, to use the personas that have better chances of opening the door. But the limitation here is that we don't do avatars, we don't do endless inbox. We only use real people, real profiles that other people want to talk to. So we're leveraging, enhancing real people that are working for your company, and we're staying away from building avatars, AI agents that are digital workers that reach out on your behalf, basically.
Okay, so the question I have is like, is there certain industries or business verticals that basically like there's no point in using outbound because there's no unique selling proposition for them? Like digital agencies, I feel like come to mind, software outsourcing. Is there which are which companies have used your product that have had the lowest performance, and then which companies have the highest? My guess is like obviously if it's something unique gets the better results, but like would love to hear your insight from doing this.
Going back to your question, so I think that there's two main use cases where outbound is less effective. Okay, the first one is that you're selling something that the ACV is too low, which means that you need a salesperson to do outbound. And if the product that you're selling, you sell it for $100 a month, it will be very, very, very difficult to reach ROI plus. Spending the efforts on outbound, buying the data, using the tools, giving the employee to work on it. And that's one thing that makes it very, very difficult. So companies that are doing like low touch, self-serve, PLG kind of thing, this is a subscription that costs $15 a month. This is something that it doesn't work. Okay. Second thing that is, it might be selling projects that are bigger, but it's very, very hard for them to generate any success in outbound is exactly what you said. It's like, it's agencies that are doing either software development, that's like extremely hard. Why? Because there's a lot of competitors, and customers usually would never close a deal with a software house, software development company that is external without a referral or a recommendation from someone they trust. Even for me as a founder, like we had at the beginning, we didn't really know what we were doing, and we had some outsource agencies that like it was a real a shit show. It was also on us, but like something that I think that every company in its life cycle get like seriously burned from something like that. So this is one thing that makes it very, very difficult. Building trust with strangers around that space is extremely hard, and it's the same thing with if you're like doing like marketing, SEO, ads, these type of things that you have 300 options and you don't know how to determine between what's best, what's not good. And probably the way that you will choose is if you got a recommendation from somebody that you know and trust. So even if you'll get those conversations, and you might get those conversations to drive that potential customer into conversion, to actually becoming your customer, the barrier is much higher. So that's why every time like we have something like that, software development that is checking us out, books a demo on our call, I always tell them like, listen, I can do the like best breed outbound for you guys, but I think that it won't solve your challenge. Your challenge is to get more existing customers to refer you to new potential customers that are in their network. And I would, if I were you, I would spend the resources in finding ways to, first of all, to broadcast myself, but also to incentivize customers that are already working with me and they're happy, how to refer me to their friends so I can, in some way or form, I can jump above this like trust question mark basically. When we're talking about startups that are or companies that are in growth, that are selling technology, they're doing something innovative. There's a way to construct their messaging to be eye-catching, and it's something that is new. This is something that creates more conversation, and I think that it creates better results. I also think that in terms of like the companies that are doing outbound, so if you're Microsoft or Google, every single person in the world knows about your brand. Leads are coming in to you. Those huge enterprises, they don't really do too much outbound.
So tell me a little bit about what you did before this, because you had a business where you said you use outbound. Like, what was that business? What led you to want to build this tool?
It's a pretty cool story, actually. The first thing that we did, that was when I was a student. One of my co-founders is also my older brother. We were both working for a big corporate, and we decided we want to do something by ourselves. So the first idea that we had was to take pictures of company employees. We had a team of artists that we found through like Fiverr and Upwork. I'm talking back in the day where you couldn't just generate a nice drawing with ChatGPT. We took the employees' pictures. We had a team of artists. They drew them into a nice picture, and we printed it out on different things. Where the best seller was coffee mugs. The customers were human resources managers, and it was a way for them to bring swag, as we call it, like to the office that is more personalized. Every employee gets its own picture. That was the beginning of our journey because we needed to find customers, and our customers were HR managers. It was completely B2B. We had zero budget in terms of marketing, and we started as our own SDRs, basically. Started calling people on the phone, sending emails, mass emails, reaching out to people manually on LinkedIn, reaching out to people with automations on LinkedIn. And the first step was that we became really good at it. We built the entire go-to-market strategy of that business only on Outbound. And believe it or not, we sold personalized coffee mugs in more than $1 million through LinkedIn chat. Basically, it started in an extra room at my parents' house. First, we're based in Israel. In the first year, we sold to like 350 companies in Israel. On the second year, we actually started selling remote to companies in the US. And for a second there, I honestly thought I'm going to get rich from selling coffee mugs. And then COVID-19 hit and everything stopped overnight. There were no more employees coming to the office, so it was like an unknown period of time where we knew that we needed to do something different. At that point, we were looking at our status. We said, okay, we generated $1 million in sales through LinkedIn chat. We understand a thing or two about Outbound. So the most natural step for us was to start an SDR as a service agency. We basically thought to ourselves, okay, we're very good at doing Outbound for ourselves. Why won't we help other companies in doing that? We did that for a couple of years. We did that for like 2.5 years. And during that time, we played with a lot of different assumptions and strategies. So the beginning was, let's do Outbound that is only based on behavioral economics. For us, it was frustrating that we couldn't find one methodology that worked with different customers, different industries, different titles, different ICP. Every customer needed its own like unique recipe to crack that code, and we were trying to find like something that is in common. What would be a different approach that we could actually, across the board, contribute to the results of our customers? That became like the research lab. In one point, we said, okay, we met so many teams that are struggling with Outbound. It's clear that everybody's doing exactly the same thing and they're expecting a different result. So there got to be another way. And we have the best testing ground ever because we have existing customers. We meet with customers every day and we can test our assumptions on their expense basically until we find something that is good and stable enough. And we met, as you said, 1,000 teams and I did the discovery process to understand what's their biggest challenges and played out with different like assumptions that we had. Now, after like a year or so, LinkedIn changed their policy. That was kind of like an epiphany moment for us. Back then, you could have sent up to 3,000 connection requests a month from every profile, which is a lot. And then LinkedIn cut that limit in 80% overnight without telling anyone. So a lot of profiles start getting blocked. And imagine that you're an SDR as a service agency and you're creating 5% conversion, let's say. But the 5% conversion is out of 3,000 messages that you sent. Now you can send only 400. So you're doing the same work, but your customers are getting 80% less results and they churn really, really fast. Okay. So at that point, all of our competitors, which were back then were SDR as a service agencies, they were digging deep and trying to find ways to bypass the LinkedIn limitation. They were thinking, okay, let's create fake profiles and do avatars and reach out from different VPNs and use different APIs. to bypass the limitation that came from LinkedIn. And for us, that was like a light bulb moment where I really remember sitting in the room with my co-founder, and we said, okay, everybody's going into the direction of hacking the limitation. Our job is to find a way to generate the same results that we generated our customers yesterday with 3,000 connection requests with just 400. So we want to generate the same results with 80% less messages that are sent. If that's the case, that's what you're trying to do, you immediately understand that first of all, you need to treat every prospect differently, separately, and those 400 potential prospects you can reach out to a month, you need to make sure that you reach out to the best 400 people. How can you determine if they are the best? Based on the context that you find, based on the data, based on the how much they match your ICP. And that was like the real beginning of that journey.
Sounds good. What is like something that you believe in Outbound that others seem to may disagree about? Is there something that stands out?
It's not about volume. I think that's the core. It's not about volume. So it's something that we talked about, but we have SDRs. Those SDRs are sending mass email campaigns. So we're used to having an SDR that is sending 5,000 emails a month. And last year he did 5% in reply. This year he's going to do 3. Tomorrow it's going to be 1%. And I think that the most popular thing that is happening in our industry at the moment is the AI SDR companies, which basically means that they're automating what SDRs used to do with AI agents. So the math, it works, but it's only for a short period of time, and I'll explain. So 4 years ago, I had an SDR, it cost 100K, he generated X amount of meetings a year. Today, that same SDR still costs 100K, maybe because of inflation, it costs slightly more, but he generates 50% or 30% less than what he generated for me 4 years ago. That's not sustainable. And it's actually generating negative return. And everybody understands that the average SDR today, with their salary, they generate a negative return. So now there's a new wave of companies that are saying, you know what? We're going to do exactly the same thing that your SDR did, but it's going to cost you only 30% of what it used to cost. It's not a worker that you hire for your company. It's a digital worker that you can fire at any moment, and he does that work for you. It might make the math work, but as we said, the hole is only getting deeper as time goes by. And if we're only concentrated on volume, spam, and we're doing exactly the same thing, expecting a different outcome, this is also, it's not going to last. So I think this is one thing that we deeply understand, that outbound is, first of all, it also requires, like sales requires soft skills, and I don't think that humans will be completely replaced in the near future. But also that the core of it is to do something that is quality, that oriented, that you get the attention of the person on the other side, basically. And if you want to get yourself above the noise, you have to do something that is different.
So you said you interviewed 1,000 outbound teams early on. How many of those outbound teams have become your customers?
Currently, we have slightly more than 70 customers, but for us, right from the beginning, so we did 1,000 discovery calls when we were an SDR as a service agency, and I did 900 calls last year in 10 months. That took us to cross the $1 million in ARR benchmark. Something that is my personal belief. First of all, I'm not shy of doing footwork, and I think that you need to meet as many people as possible. And you need to talk to as many people as possible. You need to get feedback from many people as possible, so you'll build in the right direction. I think this is something that's quite crucial. So out of the 900 calls that I did, I would say that something around 200 calls were ones that, from even before I went on the call, like maybe on the first 5 seconds of that call, I knew that 100% that person is not going to become my customer at the end of this call, and is not a potential customer for me right now, which is completely fine. But first of all, I want to get his feedback, because I want to get quantitative feedback that repeats itself before I choose to work on something specific. And second, if your heart is open and you're really passionate about what you're doing, this is something that you can actually transfer even through a Zoom call. So even if that person is not the most relevant person for me, he might have led me into one of his friends that was also open to give feedback, and that friend led to another person that at the end of the day converted into a customer. But the thing is, like, I think that's something that a lot of early stage companies, they it's one of the first mistakes is that they are really focused on a very early stage about optimizing the people that they meet and the time that they're spending. And if you're building something new as an innovative and you're trying to present something new to the world, you don't have that like luxury of saying, okay, these are people that I'm not interested in talking to because I think that their chances to convert are small. If they are, maybe their chances to convert are small because they're working with your competitors, or that they don't have the budget. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's your potential customer if he matches that ICP, and his feedback is valuable. So if he's willing to talk to you, you should do it.
Got it. And so you reached $1 million in revenue as like, as in a founder-led sales strategy, so to say. What is your strategy here? Like what's your go-to outbound campaign? Like, do you use email? Do you follow up with a phone call, then a LinkedIn? Like, what's your cadence? Because those things have changed. The reason I ask is it used to take, I think, maybe 4 to 7 steps. Now I hear people using 16 step cadences. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
First of all, I don't call email at all. Zero. I only use LinkedIn and Reddit to reach out to people. On LinkedIn, I'm also posting, also on Reddit. Like I answer people's questions. I spend some time every day, and I post a lot of content that has value to create thought leadership on LinkedIn. That content engine organically created a very strong inbound motion that didn't cost us a cent. Okay. And when it comes to outbound, we're doing mostly LinkedIn, where this thing of the persona that I talked about earlier, that persona comes into play on LinkedIn much stronger than email. That I'm the founder of the company, I'm the CEO, and I'm sharing a lot of content. And in terms of how many steps we're doing, I personally don't believe in doing more than 4 to 5 steps. And then put yourself a task to follow up when something changes. Maybe the product changes, maybe a quarter have passed. But I don't think that if someone didn't reply in 5 touch points, it doesn't mean that he needs to convert in 5 touch points. But if he doesn't reply continuously after you sent him 4 or 5 messages, one after the other, you should better leave it, rest. Don't continue harassing that person. Wait for another opportunity. Monitor that prospect until you find a different reason. It will make sense to reach out again, basically.
Couple of things, like you're doing founder-led selling basically, and you've grown your company without a salesperson so far. And you mentioned that you can get if you hire an SDR, it's basically like negative returns in this market. But like at some point, you're probably gonna need to hire someone to take over sales, right? Like what are you gonna look for in that person? Like what creates a standout SDR today?
For us, our SDR is Samplead. We're using our own tool to do that outbound work. When it comes to SDRs, it needs to be somebody that is detail oriented, that can actually do the research, reach out to a person in a meaningful way. I think that in terms of like salespeople in general, it could be SDRs, AEs, doesn't matter how you call it. The most important quality is the ability to listen. That's the most important thing. Listen as an SDR is also reading the data that you found and try to understand what is interesting for them. What's the angle that I can use in order to find a common ground that will start a conversation? For me, I think that like you can do the same demo a million times and you can try and qualify a million times. It doesn't matter if you don't use the data that someone else gives you. The data that he gives you could be his social engagement online. So he was in a podcast and you're using that in order to start a conversation with him. But once you're on a call with that person, you need to ask questions and you need to listen and you need to understand, okay, what's the person that is in front of me, what drives him, what he's interested in, and like this is how I see it.
Got it. Got it. So how do you guys leverage AI yourself? Like, I mean, I'm guessing to figure out these triggers, there's some AI, tricks there, or like, can you tell me a little bit about how you use it internally as a company and then also maybe personally?
Internally at the company, like first of all, like we built our own like multiple micro models and micro agents. That's the ICP definition, and finding each and every trigger is a different agent that works differently, goes to search different things online. There's an ICP ranker, there's the messaging creation. That's in the core of the product. For us internally, Samplead, this is something that we're trying to spend some time every week on finding ways to do things in a more effective way and implement the AI into our daily life. So we use tools like obviously ChatGPT, but we also use tools like NA10. We build like internal workflows that makes our life easier in terms of like monitoring our data and testing out new things. So I think that all the new era of vibe coding, if you have a company, you have 70 customers, some of them are enterprise, you can't really roll out a vibe coded product very soon for them. But if you want to test your assumptions, that's a really good fit. Okay. So I'll explain. Let's say that I want to start a startup tomorrow morning, um, and I have this idea and I want to sell it to people. So I need to create a prototype or something that looks like the vision that I have, and I need to show it to people and get their feedback, right? In a startup, there is also multiple startups that you're developing along the way. This is like the innovative directions that you're expanding your product to. And what used to take weeks now could take hours in terms of like creating a prototype, even in like explaining ideas that we want our development team to develop. There's a different language that is created right now that is through creating like a visual like things that will help them understand what the design should look like, how the prototype should look like, how does it need to work, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, like personally, like I look at cold email as your MVP. Like if you can get 20% conversion, or not conversion, like response rate to like your outbound message, that means there's a market there. But if you're hearing crickets, probably like, I don't know, should test out some other ideas. That's just like my personal look on stuff. But
No,
like,
I completely agree in terms of like in terms of go to market. Yeah, you need to put a bait outside and see if somebody bites it.
mhm,
But if you take it one step forward, okay, so
mhm,
let's say that your idea is to create a bot that helps you get refunds from airlines,
mhm,
okay?
mhm,
So, and the approach that you could have taken like a year or two years ago, you would probably build a prototype on Figma and show it to the first customers and tell them, okay, this is the product.
mhm,
You're gonna do everything on the back end by yourself,
mhm,
but this is the interface that you're working on.
mhm.
Creating that interface, explaining the flow, the workflow, the idea, that time is really, really shortened right now.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we're coming up on time here. I'm going to ask you a few questions. I don't know, maybe you can give me some quick answers, but like, what is one mistake you made early on that you do differently now, like when you started building this company?
At the beginning, I focused on funding versus traction and validation, which is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
You don't need to be, you don't need to make investors like you. You need to make customers like you, and everything else follows.
Mhm. What is like one specific strategy or tactic that has worked for you surprisingly well for getting your customers?
I think that like the content creation long game
Hmm.
of like going on podcasts, posting my journey on LinkedIn and in other places, going on conferences, and also talking to and helping other people. This is something that after a certain period of time you start receiving back, and
Mhm.
It's something that at the beginning I felt like it's like a drop in the ocean.
Mhm.
I'm writing a post. No one except like my wife and my friends are reading it.
Uh-huh.
But if you continue doing this thing and you continue pushing, you start seeing the fruits of it.
Mhm. Well, AI is like, like we're going through like one of the biggest like tech waves since, I don't know, the cloud, the mobile, the internet. Is there any trends that you've spotted that are interesting that if you weren't doing your current startup, you jump onto that trend maybe?
I'm so deep into what I'm doing that I don't think I have something like that.
Is there something that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you? I know we went through a bunch of questions, but maybe there's something that you can give an advice on, or something that like your product does that I should have asked you, but I didn't ask you.
I mean, I think that like for founders, you need to start by building things that don't scale. Don't focus on scale, focus on value, focus on finding the people, focus on finding the early adopters and providing them value, and everything else will come into place. Um, I think that like in terms of the way about thinking about outbound is that you need to do something different than your competitors, and you need to go to the places that your target audience socially hangs out in. So if you're a dev tool company and you're selling to developers and they spend most of their day on Reddit, you should reach out to those people on Reddit and find them on Reddit. It won't work if you'll send them an email because they won't reply. It's the same thing that if you're going after people that are created a software for influencers, you should probably find your influencers on Instagram and TikTok. And if you try to find them on LinkedIn, it won't work. So this is like the golden tip in terms of like how to think about outbound.
Like there's all these companies right now, AI SDRs that are raising big rounds. Like, what do you think is going to happen to them? I mean, do you think the math makes sense there, like in terms of valuations and in terms of how much they can grow, or are they just going to kind of pop and fizzle? Like, what's your thoughts about like those? I know there's, AI SDR. I mean, I don't think they raised a lot, but there's another one that's trying to
11x.
get rid of the humans.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a lot of hype,
Hmm.
not a good thing. And someone really smart once told me
Hmm.
that raising too much money in too big of a valuation is like peeing your pants.
Hmm.
At the beginning, it feels nice and warm, but afterwards, it gets cold and it's not that nice.
Yeah,
So that's how I see it.
yeah, got it. Sounds good. Well, I know we're on time here. Thanks for all the great insights you've shared, Dor. We'll be, pushing this out to our audience. I personally, I mean, the reason we're talking is because I spent countless hours on trying to figure out one template that delivers results and canceling all the other ones. And, like this one seems to work because we're booked out with speakers for the next few months and with content. But like I said, like it took me a lot of experimentation to get here. So I believe personalization, finding some messaging that works makes sense. So yeah, I'm with you on what you're building. Maybe we'll actually probably at some point test out your product too. I don't know. I mean, right now what we have seems to kind of work, but we're always looking for
I,
what's next.
I think you're doing a great strategy, and like for us, Outbound started with something very similar to what you're doing. So we
Mhm.
were selling personalized coffee mugs, and we sent free samples in return for a 15 minutes feedback call.
Yeah.
Because whenever you get a message from a stranger and you ask
Mhm.
yourself if should I reply or shouldn't I,
Mhm.
the question that everybody asks themselves is what's in it for me.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
can create something compelling that is like this is for me going on this podcast, obviously I'm gonna reply. So it's a great way to build contacts, and at the end of the day, like I appreciate the opportunity, and it's potential that we'll need these type of like services in probably in the beginning of somewhere of next year, and that would probably be my first contact because I do have some contact.
I mean, but this works, man. Like, I mean, think about it. Like, I also have like, there's so many tools out there. It's like, if now we talk, I mean, it's an, like now in my mind, I'm like, if someone asks me about an outbound tool, I'm like, okay, I talked to Dor, like I know he has one, and it's a compelling story. So, I'll refer it to him. So content mixed with outbound, I think is like a great strategy. You mentioned Reddit, like we're testing Reddit also. Hopefully we'll see. I mean, we'll see how, like what happens to Reddit. I feel like there's more and more people jumping in there, and hopefully it doesn't end up like Quora. But
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see. But okay, Dor, thanks for this call.
David, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and how can people find you? Is it LinkedIn, email? What's the best way for them to contact you?
LinkedIn or going on our website. Probably LinkedIn is the best.
All right, man. Dor, thank you.